Why did I decide to become a VTuber? And why did I choose the name Artemis of the Blue? A good question. So, when when I first started creating the design for myself, the name, obviously the name is the hardest part, right? The name is by far the hardest part. The hardest part out of the entire thing. So, I had my design like all finished, right? But I couldn't come up with a name for the longest time. And on the Iron Vertex application forum, which is the people who made my model, there's a field for the character's name. So I was like, damn, I can't just put it off until later. I have to come up with it. I have to come up with it now. And so, like, I actually did like a lot of research into looking up like how people come up with names for the characters, and there's like a ton of like obtuse stuff I didn't really get. I ended up just like thinking about like sharks and like VTubers as a whole, and I was like, okay, so sharks are like hunters slash like scavengers, right? And the moon plays a big part like in the ocean tides, right? Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, and also at the same time the goddess of the moon, right? And I'm a VTuber, right? And you have to keep in mind that at this point, I was still like thinking about like how Hololive does VTubers, and I was gonna be like that kind of VTuber. This was before I figured out that I can do whatever I want, right? I was like, Hololive is an idol company, and what they do works, so I'm gonna do that. So one thing about idols is that they can't date. Like, it's kind of fucked up, but they can't like publicly date, right? Artemis also happens to be the goddess of chastity, right? That was probably the biggest brain. So like, it felt super fitting at the time. Name myself after the goddess of virginity. Exactly, right? I had the name Artemis on lock, right? So I put so much thought into just the first part. I was like, oh man, the last name is gonna be a piece of shit. And I spent a lot of time trying to come up with just like the last name. And I realized, like, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to have a last name. In the end, I was like, I don't know if having a last name is really something I want to do. Maybe I should just have like a second part of my name. Like Artemis of the Pacific? Yeah, I guess you saw my email, huh? So at that point, I decided I didn't want to have a last name. I wanted to have like a title name. So Artemis of the Pacific was the first draft of that. And it's actually the email that I used to sign up for like basically whatever. Under my VTuber persona, of course. I don't know why, but I decided and finally settled on Of the Blue. If only because Of the Blue described so much more about me. The Pacific is kind of like narrow and like defined. Like basically it would just mean I'm Artemis from the Pacific Ocean, right? But Of the Blue is like I'm blue. And also I'm from the ocean. But that was basically the reasoning. I am not blue? Are you kidding me? Look at my mouth. Look at my hoodie. Man. Look. My tail is blue. And my kimono's inner lining is blue? Are you seeing this? I'm being slandered. That's basically the story about how I named myself and everything else. There's not really too much more to say about it, but that's how I came up with my name.